Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your moderator, Chief Technology Correspondent, Axios, Ina Fried.
Good morning, everyone. I don't know about you, but I am very excited for this morning's session. I just want to briefly set the context for what we're talking about today. So we're talking about entrepreneurship, but I want to encourage you to really think more broadly about what that term means. I think when most of us think about the word entrepreneur, we think starting a business. And that often is the case, and that is the case with a bunch of the people that I'm going to be interviewing. But I also want you to think about entrepreneurship as really just creating space for something that didn't exist before. And I think that's the thread that's going to connect all the people that I'm talking to, and I think the way that it can really encourage all of us in our own life. How do we want to create something that didn't exist before? And that could be a business, it could be a social cause, it could be an organization, an institution, or something in our own lives. For me, I've been fortunate. I've been part of 2 journalistic enterprises that didn't exist before. So I helped start Recode with Kara Swisher and Walt Mossberg. Now I'm part of the group that started Axios. We're trying to change the way we think about news. Can we really get smart fast? Also in my own life, I knew I was transgender from a really young age, but I wasn't sure you could be a transgender journalist. That space had existed only at the margins. I wasn't the first, but there weren't a lot. And so for me, one of the things that's been most meaningful in my life is creating that space, making it so that today I can stand here and this will be the last time you hear about my gender, and that other journalists, other kids can see that that's a possibility. I think entrepreneurship is really about paving a path and paving that path wherever you want to take it. So I'm super excited. I also want to just briefly introduce Solve, because I know we have the Solve community here, but we also have a bunch of MIT students. So who's students in the crowd? All right. And I think we have some folks from Canada here to hear their Prime Minister. Who's here from Canada? Oh, MIT students, you got some work to do. The Canadians are louder. All right. For those of you who don't know Solve, it's a fairly new initiative from MIT, and the idea is to take really ground-up ideas for how we can solve some of the world's biggest challenges through a new idea that can be incubated, and then helping the people with those ideas, maybe you, help the people with those ideas take it from the idea stage to the next stage. So in 2017, there were 38 solver teams around 4 different areas: health, sustainability, learning, and economic prosperity. And over the course of a year, they've gotten to leverage Solve's community, which includes great folks from MIT, technical advisors, issue experts, mentors, funders, and some of them have gotten new, fresh funding this year, including the first person that I'll be talking to. But in addition, they have to learn about what it takes to overcome the challenges. It's great to have a great idea, it's great to get money to do it, and it's still really, really hard. So one of the other themes that I think you'll hear throughout is, what does it take to overcome those obstacles? It's not about avoiding the obstacles. It's about figuring a way around, through, under. I believe there was a really great Sesame Street video in the 70s that covered this, but around, through, over, under, something like that. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking and bring out our speakers. The first amazing speaker, I'm going to quickly switch my notes. So the first is a solver. So this is someone who started out, had an idea, helped build it, and recently got additional funding for it. So please help me welcome solver Iman Usman, who's the co-founder and chief product officer for Ruangguru, which is the largest tech-enabled education provider in Indonesia. And they have served over 8.2 million students, 400,000 teachers across the nation through a learning management system that includes, and there you are.
Well, they got me here.
Magic. Great, we'll have a seat. So I think, I'm going to ask this, I think, of everyone, but, what do you think of when I say the word entrepreneur? And do you consider yourself that? When did you start considering yourself that?
Well, I consider myself entrepreneur. That's why I got here, right? But for me, entrepreneur is a person who sees an opportunities and acts on it. Being an entrepreneur requires confidence, knowledge, and conviction that whatever you're going to do is going to be right, despite everybody else says that it's wrong, right? Everybody will say it's impossible. Everybody says that, oh, you're too young to do it, but then you're just going to have to do it, right? Being an entrepreneur for me also means that you need to have self-discipline because you're going to be your own boss. There's no one who will instruct you to do A, B, or C, and most of the things that you do probably are the things that you don't like it. But you just have to do it. You just have to get things done. So you need to have that kind of discipline and attitude to basically push yourself harder than anyone. But for me, there's good entrepreneur and there's a bad entrepreneur, right? Like any other professions. And for me, good entrepreneur is someone who is not only doing it for himself, but also there's a mission, there's a purpose behind what he is doing. If it's just doing for himself, just to make yourself rich, then probably you can call yourself businessman. But for me, entrepreneur, there's a bigger than himself. Yeah.
That's really nice. I come from Silicon Valley, where we have a lot of both kinds of entrepreneurs. But one thing we have in Silicon Valley that you might not have is this huge network that just exists to kind of build, and there's a machine. And I imagine you may not have access to all that in Indonesia. What was there, what wasn't there that you needed help to get in terms of helping take an idea and make a business out of it?
Sure, just to give a context, so I come from a huge family. I have 5 sisters, no brother. I'm the youngest in the family, but I'm the first one who graduated from college. So education has never been a thing for my family. So the fact that I'm here today is already beyond my comprehension, actually. So to start up is something that was quite difficult because I think there are a couple of problems that I can highlight. The first one I think is there's a lack of talents. So I think to do what we are doing right now.
Maybe stop and just really briefly tell people what it is you do, because
sure.
A couple people who haven't heard of it.
So I'm running Ruangguru. It is the largest tech-enabled education provider in Indonesia. Right now, we're serving over 8 million students, basically helping them to access a lot of quality learning through our private tutoring marketplace, learning video subscription. We have classroom management. Recently, we also spin off to corporate learning as well. So a lot of things. But the idea is how can we, make sure that everybody in the country has the same or quality of education that people maybe in urban area also have. Yeah.
Okay. And you were saying what kind of is there in Indonesia and what wasn't there that you had to figure out?
Yeah, so the first one is talents, right? Because I think to do what we have to do, it requires high quality talent. And unfortunately, our education system does not prepare a lot of graduates to be able to respond to the kind of the challenges that the industry needs today. So basically what we have to do is when we receive graduates, we have to educate them from zero again, because whatever they learned before, we need to unlearn. So that's tough. And the thing is, we're quite lucky because we started quite early, right? So people now, they know us, they want to join us, and there's a mission behind it, so people love it. But I can imagine for a lot of other companies, it will be really hard for them to compete with other, large corporations, large startups who, have the resources, and they might not be able to compete with it. So the kind of the talent is limited. So the question is then how can we nurture the local talents and create a systemic approach that, that brings the talent on board. But beyond that, I think being an entrepreneur in emerging market is not only just about doing business as usual. We are still dealing with all the problems that the typical startup maybe in the developed countries deal with, but there are a lot of problems that you might not think of. So for instance, since we're delivering education services, there are a lot of schools who are still not connected with internet. They're not equipped with the right resources. So we might think about how can we deliver this kind of solution. So for instance, given the slow internet access, we need to use USB on the go or SD card that can be connected on mobile phones. So when they have to load the content is not loaded from the cloud, but it's loaded from our USB. Then it doesn't require internet.
And you guys just started a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, 4 years ago.
4 years ago, when you were 22.
Yeah, 22.
So now you're 26 and you're running a company in Indonesia with, what is it, 150 or more employees?
No, it's 500.
It's 500 employees?
Yeah.
What is that like?
Well, it's interesting because because a lot of students here as well. So I started my company while I was actually at school.
Yeah, they all feel bad about themselves.
No. But so I have to basically, during the day I have to go to school, and then in the evening I have to work as well. And there were only 2 of us at a time. So I started at Columbia. My partner was in Stanford at a time. So there's time difference. We hired 2 local staff in Jakarta. But for me, it's really interesting journey, because from 2 of us, and then you get to 10 people, 30 people, 300, and then recently 500. Last year when we pitched to Solve, we only had 150 people. It's different. And I think the biggest shift is actually on how it impacts the management. Because previously, when you were just like maybe 2 people, or maybe even 30 people, you are the one who executes everything. You are the executor. But then when you get to 300 people, then there's a shift of role. There's a shift of mindset, right? That you're not able to basically do everything anymore. You have to delegate to someone else. You need to build a middle management that is as good as you or even better than you. So there's a shift of skill set. Right now you have to coach, you have to supervise. So the management needs to be aware of it and have that kind of skill sets and have that kind of learning as well to keep growing, because you need to grow as quickly as your company grows as well.
What's been the biggest obstacle? Obviously, you've had a tremendous amount of success in a short time, but what was kind of the hardest thing that you weren't prepared for?
Well, when I started, I didn't know what startup was, right? I came from an activist background. My whole life was about, development, nonprofit, right? So when And in nonprofit, what I knew was actually, how then I spend the budget? And right now, how do I get the budget? How do I get the revenues and all those things? So there are a lot of things, there are a lot of skill set that I didn't have at the time. So I just have to learn every single day and making sure that, as I said before, I grow at least as quick as my company grows. My company cannot outgrow me in a way. So it's tough. There are a lot of things that we need to sacrifice. And the thing is, for being an entrepreneur, sometimes you do not know how long does it take for you to get successful, right? You don't know the time horizon. Like when you're working for someone, you probably can say, oh, I'm gonna work for 3 years or 4 years. But being an entrepreneur, you don't really know, like, is it 10 years? Is it 15 years? Is it 20 years to get you successful? So you have to in it for long term, and there's a lot of uncertain moments, I guess. And that's the thing when you have to deal with it, with all the things that are going on with your life.
And you said you're the youngest in your family?
Yeah, I'm the youngest.
And so you're now the CEO at 26 of 500 people. Do they take you more seriously in the family, or are you still the kid sibling?
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, no.
So, yeah. I hope my mom is watching, and yeah, hi.
So as we were talking about, one of the things about Solve is there's the opportunity to get initial funding, but then you can come back and get more funding, and it gets narrowed along the way. You were one of the startups selected by a couple of the new grants. So both the Atlassian Foundation and the Australian government are giving you more money. What do you hope to use that to? What's next for you and Ruangguru?
Yeah, I think Solve is not only just about getting the funding or additional funding, right? But I think for us, being part of Solve is really about then how can we take advantage of the resources that MIT, DFAT, Atlassian, and other partners basically provide for us. It's really about basically use that resources to make sure that whatever you pilot at a time, kind of work and then able to scale in the level that you want to. So back to your question, funding. I think for us, it allows us to basically, pilot for things that we wanted to do, and then connect, those things with the resources that MIT has provided.
Is there a wish list, like you couldn't do X before and now you think you will be able to, or what would you like to see Ruangguru, when you reach that, mature age of 30 and you're a 2 million people company, what does your startup look like?
Well, I think Indonesia is a huge market to serve, right? As there are 50 million students in K-12, and right now we're serving beyond K-12 as well. We are now getting into corporate learning, we're getting into higher education. So I think the way we imagine it is that we want to provide, affordable, quality education to everyone. We want quality education is no longer become privilege, but it is a right for every single person. And then from there, then maybe we can thinking about expansion. How can we also serve other markets that need also the same solution?
Well, thank you so much, Iman.
Yeah, it's lovely being here.
Look forward to hearing where you are in a year or two with this.
Okay, sure.
Thank you so much.